Hi guys, I wish you a pleasant viewing. Story 1. I told the doctor my mom was lying about my symptoms. I'm a 15-year-old girl, about 5 feet tall and 82 pounds. I live in the U.S. and take some prescribed medications, including Keppra, hydroxychloroquine, and Adderall. This has been part of my life for the past 5 years. I've been officially diagnosed with epilepsy, an undifferentiated connective tissue disorder, and ADHD. However, my mom believes I also have other conditions like POTS and EDS. It all started when I was about 10 years old and had a seizure during a school field trip. Before that, my mom was already very intense. Whenever I got sick, she would take me to the doctor for every single cold. But after that seizure, things escalated a lot. She became convinced that I had several serious illnesses. At first, I believed her. She was convincing, often telling me that I was experiencing things I couldn't remember because I was having a seizure. The only seizure I know for sure I had was the one in 5th grade, and even then, the hospital couldn't find a clear cause. Still, since that moment, my mom has taken me to countless medical appointments, describing symptoms I don't have or exaggerating the ones I do. For example, she'll say I have fevers and then explain to doctors that the only reason I don't show one in the clinic is because I took Tylenol. While it's true she gives me Tylenol, it's not because I have fever. She just gives it to me anyway. She also gives me cold medicine before cardiology appointments, saying things like, "You're sniffly, take this." Later I learned that cold medicine can increase your heart rate, and half the time I didn't even feel sick at all. Sometimes she'll plant ideas by saying, "You look lightheaded. Your joints look swollen. You seem out of focus." For a long time, I believed her, but lately I've realized that I actually feel fine most of the time. I'm tired of endless doctor visits and taking medications that make me feel moody, sad, or sick to my stomach. She even takes pictures of me at angles that make things look worse. One time, after playing on a big inflatable water slide and taking lots of ibuprofen for what she said was joint pain, I ended up with a bunch of bruises. She told the doctor they appeared without any reason and insisted I needed to be tested for leukemia. I knew where the bruises came from, but she convinced me that playing on an inflatable couldn't possibly cause that, so I didn't say anything. Now years have gone by, and I'm afraid that if I tell doctors the truth, we'll both get into trouble. I also worry that if I ever really do get sick, no one will believe me. I don't know why I didn't speak up sooner. For at least 2 years, I've been pretty sure she's exaggerating or making up most of this, but it's confusing. Sometimes I even wondered if maybe she was right. The problem is I don't know what to do. Can I tell doctors that I don't think these symptoms are real, or will that ruin my medical care forever? The only seizure I know I truly had was the one in elementary school, and that was witnessed by an entire cafeteria full of people. So that part wasn't made up. I did have a high ANA blood test, 1:160, but I don't believe most of the other symptoms that led to the connective tissue disorder diagnosis were real. I don't want to put all the blame on my mom either. I know I should have spoken up sooner. But at this point, I just feel completely stuck and unsure about what's real and what isn't. Next story, Story 2, Revenge on Cheating Wife, now ex, as well as the karma that came afterwards. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to write something like this, but here we are. I've been with my partner for over 5 years. We met in college, and for a long time, I truly believed we were a great match. We had plans for the future, talked about getting married, buying a house together, even raising kids one day. Things started to change about a year ago. My partner became distant, not dramatically at first, but enough that I noticed. Fewer late-night conversations, fewer small affectionate gestures, more time spent working late or out with friends. I didn't want to be the jealous or controlling type, so I told myself it was just stress or that maybe our relationship was simply evolving. But then little things started to add up. I noticed them smiling at their phone, quickly putting it down when I walked in, or claiming they were exhausted after work, but suddenly had the energy to stay out for hours on weekends. Deep down, I think I knew something was off, but I didn't want to face it. The breaking point came when I found a receipt in their car. It was for a fancy dinner, the kind of place we only went to on anniversaries, but it wasn't from a night we had been out together. When I asked about it, they brushed it off with an excuse that didn't make sense. That's when I decided I needed to know the truth. I went through the phone records, not the messages themselves, just the logs. There was hours of late-night calls to the same number, over and over. My stomach dropped. I looked up the number, and it belonged to a coworker I had met once at an office party. Suddenly, everything made sense. The distance, the excuses, the lies. At first, I felt crushed. 5 years of trust, all shattered. But once the sadness faded, something else grew in its place. Determination. I didn't want to scream or throw things or beg them to stay. I wanted them to understand exactly what they had thrown away. So, I made a plan. I acted normal for a few weeks. No confrontation, no suspicion. I smiled, made dinner, even laughed at their jokes, all while I quietly prepared. I gathered every piece of evidence. Phone records, receipts, even a few social media screenshots that showed them with the coworker when they claimed to be working late. Finally, on the night of our anniversary, I invited them to a nice dinner at home. I cooked their favorite meal, opened a bottle of wine, and set the table beautifully. They looked so relaxed, so certain that I had no idea. After dinner, I handed them a small box, as if it were a gift. Inside wasn't jewelry or a watch. It was a neatly organized folder with all the evidence. Their face went pale the moment they opened it. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply said, I know everything, and I'm done. Then I walked out, leaving them with the mess they had created. Since then, I've been rebuilding my life piece by piece. It hasn't been easy, but honestly, I feel lighter than I have in years. I know my worth, and I know I deserve better than lies and betrayal. As for them, last I heard, things didn't work out with a coworker. But that's not my problem anymore. My only regret is not realizing sooner that sometimes walking away is the best revenge of all. Next story. Story 3. My girlfriend chose her friends over me. I used to think I knew what loyalty looked like. I thought when you truly cared for someone, you stuck by them through everything. That's how I treated my partner. For years, I stood by them through ups and downs, through job struggles, family problems, and everything in between. I believed we were building something real. But all of that came crashing down the day I learned the truth. It started in the smallest way. My partner became more secretive with their phone. They used to leave it on the table or the couch without a second thought, but suddenly it was always face down or tucked into their pocket. I noticed new patterns too. Late nights at the office, vague explanations about being too tired to spend time together, and excuses that never quite added up. At first, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I told myself it was stress, or maybe just a busy season at work. But deep down, I felt something shifting. The real confirmation came one afternoon when I borrowed their laptop to finish some paperwork. A message popped up, not explicit, but intimate enough to tell me everything I needed to know. It was from someone I didn't recognize, thanking them for last night and asking when they could meet again. My hands went cold as I stared at the screen. That was the moment my world tilted. I didn't confront them right away. Instead, I quietly collected information. Phone logs, screenshots, even subtle social media hints. Every piece was another nail in the coffin of what I thought we had. For weeks, I smiled and acted normal, all while my heart was breaking behind the scenes. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat them down one evening and told them I knew. At first, they denied it, then tried to spin it as a mistake, something that didn't mean anything. But the evidence had made it impossible for them to keep lying. I told them I was done. The look on their face, shock, fear, maybe even guilt, didn't matter to me anymore. What mattered was that I finally had clarity. I wasn't going to waste another second of my life waiting for someone who didn't value honesty or respect. Walking away was both the hardest and the easiest thing I've ever done. Hard because I had invested years of my life into this relationship. Easy because once the truth was out, staying felt impossible. Since then, I've learned something important. Sometimes losing someone is actually gaining back yourself. I've discovered new hobbies, reconnected with friends I had neglected, and, most importantly, started to rebuild my self-worth. As for them, I don't know where they ended up, and I don't care. Their choices cost them someone who would have stood by them no matter what. Next story. Story 5. My new team is taunting me because I have a nut allergy. I have a nut allergy and carry an EpiPen. For 12 years, this was never an issue in my workplace. Recently, I was promoted to a new department. As always, I informed my manager about my allergy. I explained it was not airborne. I would only have a reaction if I ate nuts. I also told him first aiders were aware of my condition, and my EpiPen was kept in my drawer. I mentioned this only so there wouldn't be confusion, since sometimes I avoid team buffets or bake-offs, and I didn't want it to seem rude. But my manager reacted differently. He sent an email to the whole department, banning all nuts from the workplace because of my allergy. I was shocked. I quickly explained it wasn't necessary, stressing again that my allergy would only cause a problem if I ate nuts myself. I asked him to clarify or withdraw the email. He refused and insisted the ban would remain. He said it was company policy that any allergy required removing the allergen entirely from the department. Since then, things have gotten worse. People have been making snide remarks. Oh, I would love a peanut butter sandwich, but thanks to so-and-so, I can't. Or here comes the fun police whenever I walk past. Some even suggested my allergy was exaggerated or made up. The bullying escalated. Many Snickers bars appeared on my desk daily. I tried to ignore it, but it began to affect me emotionally. The new role was a promotion, and I was excited to grow and develop my skills. Now, I just wanted to return to my old department, where the environment was kind and respectful. I worried that asking for a demotion might make me seem unreliable, and I wasn't even sure if that was possible. I decided to speak to HR. They advised me to talk to my manager if I felt bullied, but he knew exactly what was happening and still did nothing. So I took the matter higher and met with the head of the site, the second in command to the CEO. I explained everything, the bullying, the toxic environment, and the inappropriate behavior. He wasn't aware of the issues in my department. He promised an investigation and asked me to log every incident in an email. It felt exhausting, but I did it. Eventually, the head of site caught the person placing nuts on my desk. She was fired instantly. It turned out she was the manager's right-hand woman who believed she deserved my promotion and was trying to push me out. The investigation revealed something bigger. For 4 years, the manager had avoided paperwork, neglected important reviews, and ignored multiple accusations of bullying. Staff turnover was high, but no action had been taken. The manager resigned before he could be fired. Since then, changes have been hard but positive. 2 staff members resigned, but 2 new managers and employees have joined who are dedicated and supportive. The head of site apologized for how long the problem was ignored and promised measures to prevent this happening again. This experience was painful, but it taught me the importance of speaking up. It was exhausting, but I'm glad I stood my ground. Next story. Story 6. Revenge on a terrible neighbor. Years ago, I rented a townhouse while working on a studio contract. It was a nice 2-bedroom place, and I shared it with my girlfriend who is now my wife. The house had a single attached garage, which becomes important later. Our next-door neighbor, let's call him Chad, was difficult from the start. He was in his mid-30s, balding, and one of the shortest men I've ever met. To make up for it, he drove a huge lifted custom pickup truck that was too tall to fit in his garage. He also had a heavily modified Honda Civic, which he often revved loudly. Chad liked to hang out at the end of his driveway with his friends, drinking beer all day and leaving empty cans everywhere. When I first moved in during the spring, Chad seemed friendly. He offered to move his car so movers could access the house, even though he was parking in both spots. Later, he mentioned that previous tenants let him use their garage during winter, claiming his was full of exercise equipment and his sweet motorcycle project. I told him I didn't have access to the garage yet and couldn't open it from outside. Chad said his keys and code no longer worked either. A little later, my landlord warned me never to share my garage code, keys, or access with Chad. The previous tenants had been robbed after Christmas, and a landlord suspected Chad and his friends were involved. He had changed the locks and access code for safety. I later learned from another neighbor that Chad's father had been a police officer who had died when Chad was a teenager. Chad apparently took advantage of that connection. Chad kept pressuring me for garage access. When I refused, he became angry, so angry that his friends had to hold him back. From that moment, things got worse. I started finding empty beer cans on my lawn. Chad and his friends would catcall my wife. He blocked our driveway with his truck and blasted loud music at all hours. That winter, his behavior escalated further. He was no longer allowed to park on the street and was denied parking in the visitor lot. Later, someone vandalized his Honda's car cover and scratched the paint. He blamed me for it. Then, after New Year, I found all my Christmas decorations ripped off the house and destroyed on my lawn. That was the moment I decided to take revenge. One night, during a severe cold snap, I began watering Chad's truck with a garden hose from 10p until 5a, every 30 minutes. By morning, his truck was covered in a thick layer of ice, frozen solid to his driveway. I hid the hose so no one would see. When Chad saw his frozen truck, his reaction was legendary. He screamed and yelled loudly enough to wake the whole neighborhood. The police and fire department came, but did nothing. Chad's friends tried to free his truck with power tools. One even cut into his tire and fender. A week later, the ice melted enough for the truck to be freed, but Chad had broken the windshield in frustration. That spring, my work contract ended, and I moved away, finally free of Chad. Later, my former landlord told me Chad and his friends were jailed after getting caught robbing a convenience store. It was a strange chapter in my life, frustrating, exhausting, and oddly satisfying in the end.